Alright, so this next tutorial is going to be looking at NSArray. This will actually help you with a couple of your assignments. In fact, in one or two of them deal with the concept of arrays, or you can use an array in it. So this is basically an iOS application, really doesn't do very much. It's just going to be demonstrating a sorted array, actually, and using NSArray objects. So in the NSArray class, it's often used as a container for an NS string objects. So we're going to make it more useful by creating a little shopping list with this. So in addition to providing the index storage for objects, we can sort the arrays and sort the objects, using a predefined selector or one that we'll provide ourselves in the selector. So in this tutorial, we're going to sort the array entered in by the users in a text field and present the string in a sorted order in a text view. So we'll look at the text view, we'll look at a text field. We're going to enter a string in there and we're going to add it to the text view, and it's going to be in a string that's going to be in a sorted array. So if you ever wanted to do a shopping list, or if you wanted to do some sort of a to-do list of some sort, this is your app. Okay, so let's open up a brand new Xcode project and call it string sorter or anything you want. So I'm going to go create a new Xcode project. I'm going to do a single view application. I'm going to click on next. And I'm going to call this one a string sorter. String sorter. There we go. The string sorter. And it's going to be for the iPhone. I've been doing it for iPhone all day, so I'm just going to leave it on that. And then save it to your desktop. So now I have a string sorter, like she sells, she shells on the seashore. I can't pronounce the S's. So anyway, that's my own personal problem. No need to elaborate on that one. Alright, so we have the string sorter. Say it right. So next what we're going to do is open up the viewController.h, and this is going to work backwards. So instead, let's work forwards on it, because I don't like working backwards. So we're going to need a UI text field, a UI text view, and then we're going to have a NSMutableArray. So these are the three properties that we're going to put in. We can put the properties in and drag it backwards, or we can add the items to the GUI. You know what? Let's just copy and paste them and stick them in there, and then we'll add the items. So I'm going to copy them. We're creating some properties, by the way. And so we're going to put these in the viewController.h file. So let me get rid of this monitor. I don't need that monitor up anymore. Let's see. So click on the storyboard, because we're going to have to populate it with a few items in a few minutes here. And you know, I'm going to change my background color while I'm here. Got my green going here. Click on the editor on the tuxedo item here. So I have the editor up here, and make sure you're in viewController.h or in viewController.h, and then at the bottom of the, oops, here we go. Right in between at interface and at n, add your three properties. And the three properties look like this. And if you make sure you have a line returns after each one of them here. When I pasted it in, I ended up with a problem here. We've got to have an NSMutableArray that's going to keep track of all of the things we put into our text field. And then we're going to have a text view that's going to be underneath the text field that's going to hold our list. So we're going to have a little entry spot to put in our names. And when we enter our names in, we press return, it's going to populate our list underneath it. So we need to put the GUI components in there too. So I decided to do this, and I call this backwards. You could do it forward or you could do it backwards. What I mean by that is if you go into the library, you could put these items in here and drag them to GUI components, or you could put the GUI components in here and drag them to the code. That's forward and backwards is what I'm talking about. So, and we've been doing it, and I prefer to actually do it with the GUI to the code. But I figured I'll do it a couple of times this way just for variety's sake. So put a text field in here on the top. This is a text field. And we're going to need also a text view. So put a text view underneath it. Remember the text view that we looked at yesterday, actually. So let me make this window a little bit bigger here. And I'll put my text view down here. This is going to be my shopping list. And I'm going to get rid of the text in here. I'm going to put in here empty list. So now I have empty list in here. If you color the background, you can actually just leave it empty. In fact, I'll just leave it empty. There we go. And the text is on plain text. So I can change the properties of this text view in here. I can change the attributed or plain text, and I can just make the text empty. And then up here is going to be my list. So I'm going to make this, there we go. So I can put a label up here if I want to. I'll put a label on here. And the label is going to say enter an item, or enter a list item. That's just for cosmetic reasons. But okay, so we got our list item. Now, maybe your GUI looks like this. Maybe not. You guys need a few minutes to make it look like this? All right, I'll give you a few minutes. I have a tendency to be faster. Probably because I just drag and drop and talk at the same time. So I'll give you a few minutes to catch up here. Do we need a few more than a few minutes? Should I pause the video for a second? Yeah, let me pause. Okay, I'm going to assume we got our GUI going. So let's go ahead and wire the properties appropriately. So this one's our UI text view. So I'm just going to drag it this way. And I got my text view wired. And I'm going to drag my text box. And I got my text box, or my text field, wired. Because what we're going to do is take an entry from the text field and put it in the text view. Our little shopping list or to-do list. Okay. So these properties are created here. The text field name is entered, and then the text view name is sorted. And the NSMutableArray is the entry string that will contain the string used in the text field. So our GUI looks like this, or something similar to that. So create the user interface, it looks like this. I kind of talked ahead a little bit on this. Where we have a text field, text view, and a label. So select the return property in the attribute inspector to done for the text field. So we didn't do that yet. So let's go over to the text field and make sure we can see the properties over here by clicking on the right hand side. And the return type, return key set to done. This will close the keyboard up and resign the first responder for us automatically. So what I did is I clicked on the text field, I went over to the properties over here, and I selected for the return type, I changed it to done. So go ahead and do that. Now, and actually this one actually has little screenshots for us. So if you missed it, that's the done on the return key. Now we're going to open up the viewcontroller.h file, and then we're going to wire the did end on exit event. And we're going to call it text entered. So when the text is entered, we're going to have a did end on exit event, and we're going to put it underneath. So the finished method, we don't have the finished method in here, but let's just do that one here, and let's call it text entered. So this was called entry, and this was called sorted, which was our properties for the items. So in this guy here, we're going to right mouse click, did end on exit, put it in here and call this one, what's it called? Text entered? Text entered. Doesn't really matter, we can always change the name. I'm sorry? Capital T? Okay, let's do it this way. That way at least we match. But you know, I'm just going to take the method body and copy it in there. I'm going to change my type here. I can leave it on ID, but I like to change it over to UI text field because then it says UI text field here instead of ID. When I look at it, it kind of reminds me, oh, that's a text field, you know. So, but it doesn't matter. If it said ID, I could probably figure it out by just going like this and going, oh, that's the text field. So, anyway, that's why I always change things to ID, by the way. So now I have an IB action called text entered, which is what the instructions wanted me to do. So let's see. We have our two properties. We have our did entered. We have, oh, this is not capital. It's lowercase. It doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter anyway. So now wire the UI text field to entry. We did that already, and the sorted entry. And then set the UI text view to editable property to unchecked in the inspector. So on the text view, we don't want the user to be able to click in there. In here, we don't want the user to be able to click in there and type anything. So we're going to check the property to turn it off. If we leave it on, and you'll see what the behavior looks like. If I go in here and I look at this, if it is editable, which is here it is, editable, she sells the she shores again, or the editable. If it is editable, then the user can change items in here. We're going to make it so they can't click in there. So we just turned this off right here. Okay, let's go back to the project here. So with all of these settings in place, we're now ready to implement the text entered method. So we're going to synthesize the entered, sorted, and entry string. So go ahead and copy the synthesized line and stick it in the viewcontroller.m. So in here, I'm going to switch over to viewcontroller.m, and at the top of @implementation, I'm going to add the synthesized line. So paste it in here. Now I've synthesized entry, sorted, and entry strings. If I go back to the .h file, I can see I've got entry, sorted, and entry strings. Those are the three properties that I just synthesized. So synthesize your properties, and then we're going to implement the text entered method. One thing of caution is don't change the text in here. I've had some people already do this. If you put a capital T in there, just leave it alone. When you change this, Xcode has a little bug in it. It doesn't sync well. It doesn't match well. So just leave it alone, whatever you called it, just leave it alone. Start changing stuff around and it doesn't sync well for some reason. I don't know why. Anyway, so let's go back and let's take a look at what we're going to do next. We're going to add the following method that we're going to call from text entered. Now we could have just very easily put this in the text entered method call, but we're going to put a method in here, then we're going to call it, and we're going to call it from a text entered. So add the following. So this is the little method here that we're going to add. It's going to return a string for us. So I'm going to put I'm going to cut and paste and put it in the project, and I'm going to put it at the top here, and then I'll talk about what it's doing. And oops, actually this is the entry strings. Let's see, one second here. No, this is good. We'll just leave this alone for a second. I need to put a return at the bottom though. There we go. Alright, so what we have here is a method called entry strings. And entry strings is going to, if it's true, if we have an entry string, then entry string is going to be equal to create this mutable array, so alloc it, and initialize the capacity of this array to 5, and then return the entry string. So it's basically creating the mutable array for us. So this is entry strings, which is going to be called. So you're going to add this method, and we're going to call this method from text entered. So we add the method, and I know the method has the same name. I just looked at this a few minutes ago, not to be confused with entry strings. It's the same method name as the property. Probably should have called it something else, but we'll just leave that alone right now. Actually, it shouldn't cause a problem. And so add the following implementation to the text entered method. So what I'm going to do is actually just cut and paste the center, because I called my method by a different name. So I'm going to put it in here. Copy the text here. This is going to go into our text entered IB action that we created, which is going to be on the bottom. Here it is, text entered. So if I put this in here, and if you copy the whole thing, make sure to change the T if you've capitalized the T. And what is this one doing? This one is actually calling self entry strings to add the, here, let me make this a little bit bigger so it actually looks better. There we go. So in the text entered method that gets called when we press the return key, we're going to resign the first responder, get rid of the keyboard, is essentially what that's going to do. And then the next thing we're going to do is create the string by running entry strings. Well, that's that method I put up here, entry strings. And so add object self from the entry.text. So take the text, add it to the string, and then create an array, and the array is going to be assorted strings with entry strings, sorted array using selector, case sensitive comparer, which is basically just going to create that from the string list that we have in the string box. Sorted text is going to be equal to a blank to begin with. then we're going to take the NS string from the string entry in the sorted strings, and then from the sorted.text is going to be equal to sorted.text string by appending format. So we're going to append what's in the text box with the new string that we're going to add to it that's going to be part of our string array. It's an NSMutable string array. And then the NSLog is going to show the sorted strings. We're going to put this in here just in case it doesn't show up in the GUI or if we have a problem. And then we're going to set the text in the box to empty. So we add the string in, we press return, the box goes empty, and the string gets added to our list. And we have a scrolling list that we can put in there. And when we put the list in there, we're going to sort it. So if we're going to add some items in there, we're going to add them out of order, and we'll see how the list actually gets into alphabetical order. Okay, so let's take a look at the rest of this here. So after synthesizing, we make sure that the string entry object is instantiated. We do it by overriding the getters. Okay, and basically this is summarizing what I just went through. So if we run the app, we should be able to put oranges, apples, beer, pizza, and then we have the oranges ended up underneath apples, beer, pizza, or underneath apples and beer. So let's just go ahead and run it. We'll see what it looks like. So let me take this piece off here. Oops, there we go. So build was successful. That's a good start. Let's see what happens here. So I'm going to put in here beer. I press return, and beer shows up in the bottom. And if I look at my NSLog, it's going to put my beer in here. So this is the NSLog that we're doing the string sorter with, so I have beer being printed out. So let me go back to the running app. Now I'm going to put apples in here. Apples should show up before the beers, and it does. So now if I put oranges in here, oranges. Now let's see, I should put something with another A. Angles, let's see. I don't know, angles doesn't really, but it's going to show up at the top. A-N. I'm trying to put things in here. Bear claws. There we go. Bear claws showed up in here. So our list is becoming alphabeticalized. So now it's not going to save it. If we wanted to save it, we could write it to a preferences or plist file if we wanted to save the list. But this is like maybe our shopping list or something. So let's see. We'll put the pizza in there. And pizza will show up on the bottom. There we go. So you can kind of sort of see. And then if I click in here, oops, I'm not supposed to be able to change anything. I'm not supposed to be able to edit it. Now if I pull the editing off, and you'll see actually it's kind of cool. If I pull the editing off of this by clicking on the box and then making it editable, and then I run it, I'm going to get some interesting behavior because I'm going to change one of the orders of something. So if I put something in here and go apples, bananas, banana, and then I click in here, now it's editable, so I can change this and put in here angels or something. But it's not in alphabetical order. But if I add beer to this, oops, where did angels go? Banana, beer, angels, so apples turn back to angels. Which is why I turned the editing off. Because if you edit this in here, I'm going to go ape, and then I put pizza in here. I went back to apples because it's actually in the array. It's in the NSMutableArray. Editing in here isn't going to change anything. So another, and then now I get apples back because it's the NS array that we're adding. So we have the NS array. In fact, the NS array is being printed out in our NSLog down here. So we can see after each iteration, and so that's why we turn the editing off, because editing's not going to do anything. Huh?
Change the word.
Yeah, but if we change the word down here, like I said, I could just take off apples. I'll take off bananas and I'll put in here bear claws. It's not going to change because I'm changing it in the view, and I'm not changing it in the NS array. So if I come up here and add in another one, I'll put here subways. And bear claw went away because it's actually being populated from the NS array that's turning into a sorted array that's being added to the text view. which is why we turn the editing off. Because if we edit this, this isn't going to be consistent anymore. Because all we have to do is add something new to it, and then it goes back. So anyway, you can sort of see the behavior that's happening here when you type something and then you press return. It's actually making it empty, which is nice. So it's just clearing it, making the text to 0. So there's your shopping list. So it's not persistent, it'll go away. But you can also make it persistent, save it to a file, or save it to a plist or something if you wanted to. Let's make sure there's nothing else left here. Nope, that was it. That was the end of the tutorial. You can read through the explanation down here and it'll give you a little bit more. It is case sensitive compare. So if I had an upper or a lower case, it should put the upper and the lower. Actually, I didn't test the case sensitivity, but let me take the editable off here for a second. So I put in apples and apples. I'll put in one with a B, with a capital B. So let's see, we'll put in here lowercase beer. And then we'll put in here uppercase beer. And then we'll put in here apples. An apple. So the lowercase, it's case sensitive. Lowercase will go first. Higher case second. So pizza. Subways. There we go. All right, now I'm thinking about food. All right, so questions on the shopping list or the list in general? Okay, I'm going to end this tutorial then, just kind of keep things separated a little bit.